Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Crunching Your Growth. Today, we're diving deep into marketing from a CEO's perspective with a powerhouse guest, Bethany Jeanfreau. I hope I said that right. Sounds French, right? Bethany's career spans continents and industries. She's got a great background. I can't wait for you to hear it. From consulting in Shanghai to launching a startup to leading her family business, Image 3D, which a lot of you are going to look at and think, wow, that's a really cool product. So I can't wait for her to talk about that as well. But she's mastered the art of aligning marketing with business objectives and understands how to drive a sustainable growth. So, if you've ever wondered how to make marketing a true business driver, not just an isolated function, this episode's for you. Right? We always talk about marketing on here because I'm a marketer, and most of the people that we have on here have built their businesses and scaled their businesses, and you can't do that without marketing. So, let's bring her in and let's talk to her. Bethany, welcome. Thanks for taking the time out to get on the show. And I know you're in Portugal, so that's quite a time difference. So.
Yes. Hi, Phil. Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, that's great. So it would be great if you could take us through your background. I sort of touched on it, but I think there's so many points in there that need more depth to them. And I can't do it. You can do it. And I hope I didn't butcher your last name.
You were close enough, and yes, the name is French. Um, I suppose that my story really starts in 2011 when I left the United States to go live in China, where I ended up living for about 8.5 years in Shanghai. And there, like so many people, I started as an English teacher, saying, "Well, if this works out, then great. If not, I'll find something else to do." And English teaching was fun for a while, but certainly not a career. So I moved on to management consulting, which suited me a lot better. And I that's where I really started to dig deep into what makes companies tick. How do leaders lead people? How do managers manage people?
Mm,
And that was a fantastic education, especially in an environment like Shanghai, which is very fast paced in as far as business goes. It's insane. After a while, I got an opportunity to start a business of my own, and I couldn't pass that up. And so I opened up, co-founding with my husband, Paradigm Fitness. And we focused on some of the physical elements, but a lot of it was actually the mental elements of how do you withstand a truly intense environment like that of Shanghai at the time. And so we focused on the toughness and resilience and discipline, and it was just a tremendous amount of fun. But come 2019, it was time to leave China. So I actually went back to Image 3D, which I had been working in on and off since I was a teenager. My dad founded it when I was a teenager, and that was one of my first jobs. And so about that time, my husband and I left China and we moved to Prague in the Czech Republic. And we were there for about 3 years. And it was during that time that I really dug into leading Image 3D as well as leading the marketing. I founded the marketing department at Image 3D during that time, actually. And then after a few years in Prague, for a variety of reasons, we said, well, let's head over to Lisbon. And so we've been in Portugal on and off ever since. I say on and off. We bide our time between the US and Portugal. We a lot of time in our hometown of Portland, Oregon. And then after that, I decided that after a while, I decided it was time to leave Image 3D. And I realized my favorite part of the work I was doing was marketing. So I decided to become a fractional chief marketing officer, which leads me to today. Spend a lot of time here in Portugal and launching my personal brand, Red Rhino, which is about being a fractional chief marketing officer.
that's great. So let's go back to Shanghai. Do you speak Chinese?
I didn't speak any Chinese when I arrived in country, and I learned enough just to get by and to talk with like drivers and delivery people, but conversations have always eluded me in that language, unfortunately.
Yeah, my daughter speaks Chinese, and we went to China. We were there for a month a couple of years ago, and I'll tell you, if we didn't have a guide, I don't think we would have been able to do what we did because we weren't in the cities. We were all over the place, and so it was wild. But Shanghai is a wild place. We actually have a client who's partially in Shanghai, and it is a fantastic place. But how did you? So you set up a fitness business in Shanghai. Who were your who were your primary customers? Were they expats or were they?
Mhm.
Oh,
Almost exclusively expats. We did corporate training and coaching, and the expat community at that time in China was very lively. A whole lot going on, and so it was easy to find clients within that base there, and it was a lot of fun, and for quite a while it worked out very well.
are there a lot of expats in Shanghai? I've not spent a huge amount of time there, but I know that it's a very international city, and so
Mhm.
I would imagine that there's people from all over the world that are there.
At the time, yes, there were people from all over the world, and it was easy to. It was one of the first places I've truly felt a sense of community that I could go to the people within my community, with something great has happened and I want to share it, or something I need help with has happened, and people would come forth and help me. It was really a great time. Of course, I can't speak to how things are today as I'm not there, and most of my contacts in Shanghai have left. But no, there was not a huge number there, but we sure were interconnected.
I know that it was years ago, but Hong Kong had a tremendous amount of expats and a huge expat community, primarily because of trade, obviously with the U.S. But yeah, it's interesting. It's a great city. I didn't spend a lot of time there, like I said, but the time I did spend there, it was great. We actually were there for the opening. There's a W hotel there, and we were actually there when the W opened. Um, and and it was like the opening week, and so there was a lot of tremendous activity going on there. And we were out. We had spent a month in China, and so we were everywhere, out west in rural areas, and it was very. It's not like what we're used to here.
Nope.
Beds aren't what we're used to. Showers aren't. You know, and when we got to Shanghai, it was the first city since Beijing that we were in. And when we got there, we were so happy just to see the bathroom the way it was, and just to be able to take a hot shower and have a bed with a mattress on it, that wasn't
Oh
like
yeah.
a hard board. So it was fantastic. But all those experiences were great. I don't begrudge any of them. I mean, it was fantastic. It's a beautiful country. But anyway,
Yeah.
yeah. So so then you went to Prague, which did you that's Czechoslovakia, right?
The Czech Republic, yes.
Yeah. So and do you speak Czechoslovakian?
Nope. I After a while I started to take Czech lessons. And I didn't get that far before it was time for us to decamp for our next adventure in Portugal. And so I got some of the basics, and I could make my way around Prague mostly because a lot of people there speak English. I
Oh,
think
is
you'll
that
find
right?
that. Oh gosh, yeah, a lot of people in Shanghai speak English. A lot of people in Lisbon speak English. It's been my experience. Pretty much every large city I've traveled to, which there are quite a few, that no matter where you go in the world, most people are going to speak English, especially if they are in the service sector that regularly deals with tourists, or even just in the city center of like Prague, non-tourist people, tourist industry based people are also going to speak English just because you have to do business.
Yeah. uh, Western Europe, I find that yeah, you can get by, and you can get by. I think even if you have a limited knowledge of the language, you can sort of get by understanding where you are and things like that. But there are some countries where you look at, and in China, in some of those rural areas where the signs are, there's no English on those signs. It's just symbols, and you have no clue. And my daughter did her, she did quite well getting us around, but we also had a guide in a lot of places because I don't think we would have made it very far without it, because we literally went to one restaurant to eat, and I mean, the menu you couldn't figure out, you couldn't talk, nobody understood, and my daughter was able to decipher what to get, but it was a wild experience. But those things are great. But yeah, Western Europe, I think people can tend to speak more English. I
Yeah.
always like to I always like to give it a shot, especially in Italy. In Italy and France, I like to give it a good shot. To it, I butcher the language, but you know,
Yeah, butchering a language is just part of the package of learning a language. Y I speak French as well,
oh, do
and
you?
so I do, yeah, I studied in Paris for a year even. I didn't quite tell that as far as, I started with my time in China, but before that, I've also lived in Paris for a year,
Yeah.
and, you have to have at least one or two good experiences where you just make a complete fool of yourself to a local, and if you can have those one or two stories, then you're really living in the culture.
I find that, the in Spain and in Italy, when you start butchering, but you're making an attempt. Well, Italy, I do better because I do speak a bit more, but I try and translate that into Spanish, and they can tell. But I find that those folks are more receptive to making a joke out of it when you butcher the language, than in France, for example. France, for some reason, I even if I make an attempt, they sort of turn their nose up at me.
Well, different cultures, different people.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. So so then what, you're there, you have this business, Image 3D. What is
Mhm.
it? What does it do?
So, most people will recognize from their childhood Viewmasters, like
Yeah,
this one. This is a retro viewer, and we individual people can go onto our website, which is image3d.com, and then put in their pictures. And a few days later, we send out an individualized reel in a viewer. We have a variety of colors, and it's great for a lot of people. Give them as gifts, particularly come Christmas time, but also Valentine's Day. And then it's also used for B2B, for marketing purposes. I mean, just imagine if you're looking for like a unique like lead magnet, this is fantastic. Send this out to a group of people that you're looking to get in touch with, and have a call to action at the end that leads to a landing page. It's a brilliant lead magnet.
hmm. Yeah, it's interesting because it's so unique, right? We do remember them from our childhood, um, but it's pretty cool. I looked at the website and I thought it was, obviously I thought about, um, my mother or somebody like that, because they would get a kick out of it because obviously when they were younger, they had them, I'm sure. Um,
Mhm.
so I thought about that. I didn't think about the lead magnet, but that might be something to test. I might be willing to test that
Yeah.
for my own.
It's a it's a do, because it does definitely does work. And it's I have never heard of someone receiving this in a box and opening it and being like, I don't ever want to look at that again." People people pick this up, and the general response is, "Oh my goodness, I remember this from when I was a kid."
Yeah,
The nostalgia factor is super high, and then they start looking through it, and the messaging in there doesn't get lost. It's just a very unique way of delivering a message, and it also, um, inspires people to be rather to the point, because you only have 7 different images, and you definitely don't want to have a bunch of text in there. So how do you convey what you're trying to convey through visual images, like pictures? It's a great.
yeah.
I've seen some really creative work come through there, and some really creative reels, and really great ways of communicating. just through seven simple images.
Yeah, that's interesting because, you know, um, I was telling you about before we got on the show, I was telling you about, some of the learnings about how people are consuming content, and one of the other things that, I learned, this past week was that, static images may still be relevant on advertising online and places like that, but the messaging has to really be in the image. It can't really use the description anymore because people don't necessarily read it, right? People aren't consuming um, text as they did in the past, and so visuals obviously become um, more important. But like I said, it's the average person, whether you're a brand, whether you're a B2B company, whatever you're doing, you have to the client or the prospect has to consume 7.5 hours worth of your content before they make a decision about whether or not they want to move forward with you or even consider you, which is, when you think about it, it really focuses on long form video and long form podcasts and YouTube, et cetera, as a way to convey messages to prospects, to prospective clients, and not just as a brand trying to get consumers, which is
Mhm,
also relevant, right? Which is why the TikToks of the world and Reels are all booming for social selling. So it's just interesting how people are consuming content today and how much of it they're consuming and where they're consuming it.
mhm. For sure, for sure.
Yeah. I was telling I was having a conversation yesterday about news, and, you know, I have 5 kids and they're all under the age of 28, and they don't watch traditional news. And
Mhm.
I said, where do you get your information from?" And 90% of the time they get it from YouTube, and
Okay.
there are YouTube, vloggers on there that are young, that are basically interpreting the news. They're not news reporters, they're not going out like CNN and covering the news, but they're getting it and then they're deciphering it and they're explaining it to this generation. This generation, generation under 35, is consuming media in an entirely different way. And yeah, it's just interesting how what's happening in the use of video, short form and long form, images. So when you think about that 7.5 hours, and you think about, okay, well, you've got a podcast for your brand, or you've got reels going on, you've got TikTok videos, short form, you've got images, and now you throw into the mix this, your image 3D piece.
Mhm,
All of a sudden, it just becomes part of that mix. So I could see it being pretty cool.
mhm. Yeah, yeah, sure. It's, you're definitely not gonna get close to 7 hours just from clicking through
No,
this.
no, no, no.
But what it is it's just so unusual. I mean, people are used to watching videos. They're used to receiving media coming at them all the time via their phone or their
Sure.
laptop, whatever. But I mean, how often do you get a package in the mail that isn't something that you've already ordered? And so just to receive something unusual and to actually have something to touch and to play with is just so unusual.
Yeah, yeah.
Was that it? I think that I think that that has gotten lost in so many different ways with the way that a lot of marketing is done in our modern society.
Yeah, I think that, yeah, I think there's some, it's, I think you have to do it, in a really interesting way in order to get people to open it and use it, right? Because I can remember when I was, I did actually work for other people in my life, and when I worked for a large supermarket chain, and as senior vice president, And, people used to send stuff all the time and to try and get your attention. But most of the time it was just logoed merchandise, and you just took it and you were like, oh my God, what am I going to do with this? And you put it, we had this area where you just put it out. And if people wanted to take it, they took it, but it really didn't do the job, because
Mhm.
they were just sending things that were, just logoed merchandise, and
Yeah.
I'm not going to wear your shirt, and I'm not going to,
Yeah.
you can send me all the books you want, all the, writing tablet books you want. Um, but this, I think, would be something that somebody would open up and go, "This is this is interesting." You'd have to have something with it, though. I think about your brand to sort of explain it. But I'm seriously thinking about it in my head right now.
What's funny, Phil, is that you're not by any means the first person when I've showed them the retro viewer that immediately starts to tick through your head. What could I do with this? What could I do with this? Because by and large, especially in North America, people remember this from their childhood. And then it's almost like a blank canvas. How could I paint this picture of the message I'm trying to share?
Yeah,
And yeah, it can be branded, but it's not like a typical like T-shirt or golf tee or pen or something that you kind of come to expect from branded merchandise. It's something that it does have that impact. And so most people will say that they leave it on their shelves for years. Point of fact, I actually I'm in a group of fellow other fractional CMOs. We meet weekly, and I was talking with this one woman in my group, and she said that, you know what? She received a Retriever 10 years ago, and hold on, she pulled it off of her shelf. She still had it from 10 years prior.
that's
And
funny.
she said, I just thought it was the coolest thing ever, and I just couldn't get rid of it. And so it's here in my home office now.
Yeah. No, I think when I first looked at it, I didn't spend a lot of time, but when I first looked at it, I thought as a about sending it to a person, right? I thought,
Hmm.
but now that you say that, now the wheels are turning because I'm going, that's you can get somebody's attention with that, right? You can get a CEO's attention with that when you're pitching your company and services. You can do, but I'm not a big believer in more than seven, you know, slides anyway. Uh,
Yeah.
10 slides to me is the max that you want to ever produce for people. I mean, you're not going to get somebody to sit by a 20 slide deck. I mean, it's, you know, even when I had businesses and we were out raising money, we never did more than like 10 slides because you're just going to put everybody to sleep. If you can't get it
Oh
across,
gosh.
yeah, if you can't get it across in, really seven slides, you've got a problem.
Yeah, no, I've come up to more than a few meetings where I sit down and realize this is like a 30-point PowerPoint presentation. And my only thought is, can I leave? Do I have to stay for this?
Yeah, it just boggles my mind that, you know, it's people trying to cram everything into something instead of getting to the one major point that they want to get across, right? And
Yeah.
so that's really that's the issue. But
Yeah. It's like any form of communication. If you give too many details to people for whom the details aren't pertinent, if you're gonna, the audience is gonna lose interest. The more you stick to the main point, the more people are going to have interest and be willing to give you their time and their attention.
oh yeah, people can get derailed, and then the next thing you know, you're going off the deep end in another conversation that has nothing to do with really what you came there for. So I agree fully. People don't. Most people don't know how to give good presentations anyway, and so they wind up in you wind up in Never Never Land. I was on one yesterday where they were talking about for a client that we have, it was conversion rate optimization, and they're having problems with um, conversion rate on their website. And we have a partner agency that we work with when we have those problems that because we're not experts in that field.
Sure.
And so I was on the call with them, talking to the client, and then just there was one slide that basically was the heart of the problem, and the recipients of the information were taking it down a path that we kept having to, you know, round them back up. It was like herding sheep back into the pen going, "No, no, no, you're missing the point. You have to focus on this one line. Says it all. This is the problem. This is the root of your problem." And they're going down another path like, hey, you're going, "Guys, guys." And I'm good at that part of it. I'm good at getting people back into because most people don't want to. They're like, "Well, they're the client, and so we have to listen." I always go, "Come on, come on. Let's get focused again." So,
Well, ultimately, it's in everybody's best interest for you to do that because your client may be, out in the woods talking about this, that, or the other, but they also want to achieve the same goal that you do. So it's not a bad habit. And a lot of people think, oh, I shouldn't do that because I shouldn't ever stop my client from speaking or whatnot. Nah, they're just people. They get distracted, and ultimately, everyone's there because they have a business goal in mind as far as why they're meeting. So,
I learned a, tidbit of information a long time ago from a business psychologist, a business, you know, and they said you have to tell somebody something 17 times before they hear it, 21 times before they understand it. And so that always sticks with me because when you're given a presentation and you've got to say the same thing over and over again in different ways because you're that's how people have to get to understand what you're talking about.
I'm sorry. Could you repeat yourself? I
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
listening.
Exactly. Well, they hear, the first time you say something, especially if it's a complex business solution, they hear pieces of it and then
Yeah.
they don't finish listening and they immediately go here. And that's exactly what was happening yesterday. They heard, one piece of it and they're going here and you're going, no, 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 come back. Let's talk about this. It's the whole thing. And basically you're saying it over and over again before they finally go, oh, oh, I understand now. You're saying, okay, it's 7 words. You could have understood it the first time, but it's just human nature. We wanna go where we wanna go, right?
Yeah. Also, depending on, I find things like time of day can make a difference.
Oh, yeah.
If it's that lovely hour right after lunch, my ability to pay attention is significantly decreased.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, and we never have like, I never schedule 4 o'clock meetings with clients because they're not gonna be engaged. 4 o'clock, it's the dead zone. I try and
Yeah.
do it first thing in the morning, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. That's the best time for me too because I'm not 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm not good at it. I can't do my best work then,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, for
but yeah.
sure.
But, um, yeah. So let's get back to Image 3D when you took it over.
Sure.
You took over the marketing, you built a marketing, platform for it, to scale, right? To try
Mhm.
and get the
Yes.
business to scale. So what were some of the things that you did? Because it is a unique product, and you've got 2 different ways you can go, right? You've got the consumer side where it becomes a great Christmas gift, for people, and then you've got the B2B side where you can use it as a lead gen tool, right? So
That's
what
correct.
how did you sort of choose? Or I guess you don't have to choose, but you have to be careful about where you're stepping, right?
Well, so I came in the autumn of 2019. And so for the first little while, a lot of choices were made for me by the shifting market due to the starting of the pandemic. Our B2B sales went completely flat for a little bit, so I got to shift over to focusing on direct to consumer sales for basically the majority of the pandemic. Um, and so, but as we started to come out of that, then I got to the ability to focus more on B2B sales. And so that became, it became like a 50-50 focus between the direct to consumer e-commerce sales and then the lead generation for the B2B sales. And so how did I think your question was, how did I get going with all of this?
Yeah, I mean, just you came in and you had to build what I heard
Mhm,
you say, and maybe I misheard it, but you had to really build a marketing, program,
mhm.
right? Because
That's correct. So when I came in, we had a marketing agency that we're working with. No one was very proactively organizing with the marketing agency to talk about internal efforts versus what the agency was doing. The agency had their strategy, but it wasn't necessarily aligned with the corporate strategy. Um, and not through no fault of their own, no one was conveying that message to them. And so I had been doing event marketing for quite a while in Shanghai and really enjoyed that, but I didn't know that much about digital marketing. And so when I saw this, I said, well, this needs to happen, and I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to do this myself. And so I spent the first little bit learning a tremendous amount about digital marketing. Um, Nothing quite as fun as learning by jumping into the deep end of the pool and hoping you can swim.
It's the only way to do it.
Yeah, and that's how I learned to do digital marketing is by doing it, attending meetings with the agency, writing down terms that they'd say that I didn't understand and Googling after the meetings. That's how I learned a lot of the jargon of digital marketing. And and then I started to learn strategy, and then I started to align company's vision of growth versus what the agency is doing, and started to look for other ways so that we could to sell the retriever. And so we had listings on Etsy, but we were doing nothing proactively with them. So I picked up that project, made it an active project. We were on Amazon, but that was not well coordinated with what the rest of the marketing agency was doing. So get that all coordinated, and then just basic digital marketing cleanup, like for instance, we didn't have any email automations, or even we didn't even have a very active email marketing wing of our digital marketing. So I got that going, really honed in on email automations. It's nothing sexy, but incredibly useful, like abandoned cart series email.
Sure.
You got that really going, and it started to really make a positive difference to the bottom line for the company.
Abandoned carts are very sexy to me. I it's one of you'd be amazed, like, when we take over a client, we go after the basics, and a lot of times, even big companies, I mean, I don't care whether you're a guy trying to go from 10,000,000 to 50,000,000 or 50,000,000 to 100,000,000 or even, higher. A lot of times they've missed some of the basics, and so it's sort of low hanging fruit for us. But I've been in that position where we actually have a client that we just ended the relationship with after a tremendous amount of years because we were on autopilot for us. There was no conveyance of what the message was. We were sort of creating the message and feeding it to them, going, "Here's what we think you should be doing." And everybody's going, "Okay, great." And it was working. It wasn't not working. We were driving sales. We were doing all kinds of things. We're Amazon experts. We've been on Amazon since 2006, managing things, and so all those pieces. But it was really a lopsided relationship because we shouldn't have been doing some of the things we were doing. I mean, we did everything. We built their websites, we managed their websites, it did their email, we did everything, and we kept saying, should we, how do you feel about this? And they did, as long as the numbers showed up, they didn't really care. And they were not a small company; they were big,
Mhm.
and and we were doing videos, doing TikToks, getting a lot of views, like hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of views on it. And then the CEO and the basically senior management got taken out for
Okay,
whatever reason. They got taken out, and they were owned by a PE firm. And these new people
sure.
came in, and they basically looked at us and said, "Why are you doing this? This message isn't right." We're like, "Well, the message was right for 4 years, and they started changing things, which is fine. That's your prerogative. I'll do whatever you
Yeah.
tell me. We'll do whatever you tell us to do." And they started changing things, and the metrics fell apart, just fell apart.
Oh,
And
yeah.
because they weren't, we one thing about us is we understand how to build a brand, and we understand what we were doing, and they were totally off in a different way. They felt like the brand had to go in a different direction. We're like, which is fine, you know, but everything just started falling apart. And I said, look, I gave them notice. I said, you find another agency. We're not right for this. And the PE company, which we had a relationship with, called me up and said, "Why?" I said, I said, "I have to protect my brand." I said, "And our brand, we're well known in the industry for building." I said, we're very careful about who we take on as clients because, we don't take on sellers, people with a selling mentality. We build brands. That's what we do. And I'd have to be careful about that." I said, "And I don't want to be on a sinking ship, and you're heading down a sinking road." So because you got people that don't understand the brand, they don't understand what they're talking about. I may not have been perfect. Our direction may not have been perfect, but we were on the right path. And so I said, "Look, we'll stick with you until you find the right people." And it took them 6 months to find the right people. We stuck with it and we kept, doing what they were doing, but the numbers just kept going further and further down. And, I find that in that situation, the CEO, the CMO, they wind up making excuses for the numbers. They wind up
Mhm.
making like, "Well, this is a strategic decision, and we want to go into a different path, and we we find that the e-commerce is not as big as we want it to be. We want to go down the path of brick and mortar." And you're like, "Okay, well, it's your prerogative." And then, you go from a $67 million a year company to a $34 million a year company in 2 years. I don't think you're on the right path.
No. Oh gosh, that sounds painful to watch. That
It
6
was
months that you're watching the brand just, crumble. That must have been so so uncomfortable to sit there and watch that on a week-to-week basis.
Well, you can't, in our position, we can't push, right? We
Mm,
can guide and we can provide data. And we could show that, for 6 years, we had positive growth on every single channel, right? And we had great returns on ad spend. See, the difference between us, and this is where part of our problem, I'll be honest with you, and I recognize this as a problem, is that my background is being an entrepreneur. I built my own
mhm,
businesses.
mhm.
And so I know like sort of what to do. So when we approach problems, we approach them from that perspective. Like I always, if you're my client, I'm looking at you like, okay, here's how I would make decisions about this business. And one of our faults is that we don't necessarily always think that spending money on advertising is the right thing to do, or spending increased money. So like we had a client come to us once and said, I have to spend $500,000 in this next 2 months, or I'm going to lose it for next year because of the way their budgeting works. And I was like, I don't feel good about it because I know I'm not going to get your return on it. I'll spend the additional
Yeah,
500,000, but it doesn't work, right? And so like people will come to us and say, I want to increase my ad spend, and I'll say, I think money would be better spent here. Whereas, one of them may not return anything for us, but I think it's the right thing to do. And so a lot of our clients, that's why we keep clients for so long, because we don't BS them, right? You go to
yeah,
most agencies will say you need to spend more money on advertising because I take 15% of all the advertising spend, right? And they'll just want to keep you spending on ads. But we're trying to get you to spend less money, get a better return. And so it doesn't behoove us to do that, but that's the way we sort of do it. So that's why we keep clients for long term. And
yeah.
but we're very focused on brands. We don't work with the people with a seller mentality. When we start talking to a prospective client and they're talking about, you could just tell they have a seller mentality. It's never going to work because
Yeah,
that's a race to the bottom.
yeah. Well, the way that you just described how you do your business, where you're looking to build a brand and to see growth over a long period of time instead of immediate growth, that's how you grow a company. And I think a lot of people have gotten away from that. The other thing that you were touching on was you're touching on your values and your morals as far as how you want to run your company. You want to not just focus on the short term, but focus on the long term and focus on how you portray your client companies to portray them in the absolute best light. And even like making sure that your client company is aligned morally with your company. And I think that a lot of companies have gotten away from that, but I see a lot more companies who are starting business owners and decision makers within these companies who are looking for vendors like marketing agencies where they can talk with people who have shared values so that there can be an understanding of no, I don't even really want to look at this kind of a marketing campaign because I think it's going to produce only short term growth,
Right.
but rather look at it, maybe sacrifice a little bit of short-term growth, but to have a tremendous amount of long-term growth, and to really see our company grow and over a sustained period of time. And it's entirely too easy to get focused on trying to turn a profit this month, this quarter, instead of what is the company going to look like 1 year from now, 3 years from now.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Look, we're very focused because again, I'm an entrepreneur. I built several companies, and I'm very focused on profitability and understanding
Oh yeah.
profitability.
Oh yeah.
Because if, even for our clients, like I don't want to lead them down a road. There's a lot of agencies out there that'll get you to just spend, spend, spend. But we're not a churn and burn type agency. Like there's a lot of churn and burn agencies out there that want to get you into the funnel and then they get you going. And, we don't do that. We want clients that are going to last with us for, 8 years, 10 years. We still have the first client we ever started with. But we are very focused on what our moral, like we won't do anything in certain categories. We won't touch it because it just doesn't work for us. I don't like the categories. I don't think people should be buying it, and so we're not going to deal with it. Uh,
Yeah.
and so um, and people come to us, and it's just not going to happen. But you know, I think that it's better. I have more fun doing that. I like clients that we can relate to, and that we can actually say, "Hey, look, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I'm going to tell you, we do a lot of connected TV, television advertising. And,
Mhm.
I can tell you that over the years of running my own businesses, I wasted millions of dollars on television advertising. So I've learned those lessons. I have the scars to prove it. And so when people start talking to us about it, I'll say, look, I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to tell you what to do. We'll do anything you want to do, but I'm going to tell you the scars I have from doing this. And it's relatable to them because I'm not saying, you know, don't do it. What I'm saying is here's the best way to do it after I've wasted so much money trying to learn that
Mhm.
lesson. So
I think I've yet to experience meeting any marketer who doesn't have some tale to tell about how they, a campaign that they were so sure just didn't work out, and the ad spend went to waste, or the effort went to nothing other than a learning experience.
yeah,
But you do have to have those learning experiences where you make those mistakes, and so that you can come out the other side and say, well, I'm never going to do that again.
yeah, yeah. No, no, I've got plenty of those.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I've made most of those mistakes with my own money, and that's sort of our pitch is like, "Look, I can tell you how to do this. I can tell you what's gonna work, but I'm telling you this because this is how I lost money. This is what the effect was." And a lot of, companies in that, sorta 20 to $100 million range appreciate that because they, they sort of, you know, when brands start out, they start out, in zero and they get this growth and then they sort of hit a plateau. And then we can help you get over that plateau, but it's always a series of plateaus when you go. And so when you can say to people, hey, look, when I was here, this is what I did and this is what happened and this is where I got sort of sideways. Um, so it's almost like we become a coach and a marketing firm, you know.
For
So
sure.
yeah, that's sort of a good sweet spot for us. So,
For sure.
but I want to go back to Image 3D because I'm curious.
Sure,
So,
sure.
so the because I hear you on this. This would be a great a great way to get B2B business or to get a client. And so how do you find those people, right? How did you sort of hone in on that group? Because you're really then talking to service providers who are then going to use your product, right?
So as far as the B2B sales go, we speak with a lot of people who are in the marketing department. We speak with a lot of people who are in the purchasing department. And then for smaller companies, it's like the CEO or whoever's leading the company. And it's mostly just used for marketing purposes within the company. But we do sometimes get like HR reaching out to us because they want to use it for like an employee incentive or things like this, or they have to update some sort of policy and they want to do it with a retribute. I've seen that happen too.
I was just thinking as soon as you said that we start talking to the CEO or the CMO or whatever, and I started thinking HR would love this because when you have something that um, you want to change, or even if you want to highlight somebody, it could be a great tool. It's really interesting. It's a really interesting business. I think it's pretty cool. And who came up with that? Your dad?
My dad. So my dad was the photographer for ViewMaster from 1978 to 1998.
No way, really?
Truly. And so a lot of the ViewMasters from that era, the pictures in it were photographed by my dad.
Wow.
And they had their facility just outside of Portland, Oregon, which is where I'm from. And in the late 90s, they moved to upstate New York. And so my parents had the option of moving to New York, and my dad could continue, or they could stay in Oregon and do something else. And they elected to stay in Oregon. And my dad said, "Well, what do I know? I know photography, and I know 3D photography, and I know what I've been doing for 20 years." And so, you know, the technical world made it, he could find his way through to form how to actually manufacture these themselves. And the reel is patented by him, because it's a different way of making the reel than it was originally done. And so, yeah, he started it. And I was 16 when he started the company, in the late 1990s. And that's where I started to learn about not only manufacturing, but it's where I started to learn firsthand what it takes to run a business. And after I was done with college, I worked in the company for a few years before moving to China. And he really started to teach me intensively about what it takes to run a company at that time.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting product, but wouldn't he have had to license it from Viewmaster or no? Did
Mhm,
he
yeah.
change it a little bit?
The viewer is licensed from Viewmaster from Mattel these days, but we hold the patent for the reel here.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. So I came back during in 2019, and didn't take long before I was running the company, and it didn't take long after that before I realized I have a blind side here. I need some help. And so talked with my sister, and she was the solution. And so she and I ran the company together for about 5 years.
Oh, wow. And are you
Yeah.
still running it? Who's running it now?
She's running it full time, and I help with marketing strategy. And I still work with her on some special projects, but I'm no longer involved with the day-to-day operations of the company.
I really am intrigued with the whole product. I think it's just a fantastic product, and probably I just I yeah, I think it's a great product. I think your father was really, really smart to do that. And it has it's so retro that it's so cool in today's world, I think.
Mhm.
So I am going to try it though. You can mark my words. I have to think about it and get my folks on this because I do think it would be a cool outreach tool to send to some prospects that we know that we want to go after. I think it'd be really cool.
Yeah.
And you know, the thing I think about is the ability to for a prospect, right, to be able to make a reel um, that's geared towards them specifically. So, in other
Mhm.
words, you're not putting out a generic one; you're making one that's for them. You know,
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, for
that's
sure.
yeah. So that'd be cool. So, what are you doing
Yeah.
now? So that's now
Mhm.
you're a CMO for hire, and you work all over the
Yes.
world, or just in Portugal?
All over the world. I mean, I have a niche I work in, which is health and wellness, but I also can certainly work in manufacturing because I do have over 20 years of experience in manufacturing. But really, my heart is in the health and wellness space. And so when I'm, talking with companies, that's who I'm talking with a lot of the time.
Yeah, that's great. That's a big that's a big, it's a big space, you know?
It really is.
It's a big space. You really have to sorta, uh, niche it out a little bit, you know? But,
Yeah.
uh Yeah, it's a big space and getting bigger every day. So it's fun. Um, so what else is on the horizon?
Oh gosh, just continuing to grow my new firm, and I've only had it for a few months now, so it's still a baby, and it still takes a lot of intensive care from me at this point in
Does.
time. So I'm delving deep into all the day to day to get everything set up. Like, my website is nearly done. I've been doing fun projects like that lately.
Yeah.
And just watching my company grow up, and then love to, see how far I can take it, and, maybe one day bring in other CMOs who can deliver under my brand, and that'd be just that that sounds fantastic for me.
Yeah, I would imagine the outreach has gotta be a little bit tough, right? There's so many what we find, we do some outreach, but it's very targeted and very but there's so many people out there pitching so much garbage today, like,
Yeah.
especially given AI in marketing. I mean, it's just every day somebody's got something that, fire your marketing agency and let AI take over. And there's so many vulnerable people that are smaller, smaller brands just starting out that that wind up doing this. And it just can't happen because the reason is because yes, we use AI. We've been using AI for years, right?
Mhm.
And there are certain categories and certain channels and certain areas that you can use AI. We can use AI to edit videos, right? We can use AI to you know generate content. We can use AI to analyze results of ads and things like that. But these guys that are out there pitching, saying, well, it'll create your ads. It doesn't, because if you think about the customer, and we know that the modern customer wants a relationship with you and they want things to be authentic, and you're sitting there saying, give me a picture of your product and I'll create this, video of it. It's not authentic, and it always fails. But people, they wind up, and these again are churn and burn companies. They wind up signing up. They sign up for a year, or they sign up for 6 months, and then they realize after a month it's not working, and we see
Mhm.
it all the time. There's one that was on social media that was really pounding it. We can create your ads, and we have this plugin that goes into your Shopify site, and it'll run your ads for you on Google and Meta. And people were plugging this thing in, and it was a disaster. And then when they tried to unplug it, it was even more of a disaster. And we've actually become an expert at unplugging it, because we've had so many people that we've picked up, brands that we picked up that tried it and, couldn't get it off their website. And we have a couple of developers that work for us that figure out, exactly where to look, because it's just so predatory. But anyway,
Yeah, there's a lot of new software out there. A lot of because AI is just so new, and what you can do with it. I mean, I'm still learning. I'm absolutely fascinated by AI, and so I attend as many seminars as I can come across. And but you do have to use AI in a way that there's still your humanity
yeah,
underneath all of it. And I think that, especially with a lot of the automation programs I've seen that use AI, they've automated so much so that there's no basis of humanity underneath there.
yeah.
It's the basis of AI. And I think that it's almost like you can smell it when you look at the ad. If
Yeah. Oh,
something is,
yeah. Yeah, you can
yeah.
absolutely tell. You can absolutely tell. We don't like AI images. We don't use them because it just looks fake. So we use AI to touch them up? Sure, certainly. We use AI. I'm fascinated with AI, and we use it in a whole bunch of different ways, and we find new ways every day to use it. But you still have to think about, I think AI gets us 60% to 70% of the way there. And then you have to bring it home with authenticity. You can't,
Mhm.
like I said, I mean, we do tons of short form video, and we use it. We use AI to help edit it, clean it up, do all kinds of things with it. But we can't go from start to nothing. Somebody showed me the other day. They took um, my background, they plugged it into Notebook on Google's Notebook product, plugged it into Notebook, created a prompt in ChatGPT, took that with the notebook and put it into InVideo to create a video for me, and that was great, it was nice. I like the un I understand the process, and I thought it was great, and I thought the prompt was great, but the end product just looked fake, it wasn't me,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so if I'm gonna do a video but what it did was I liked the flow of what the video did, so I said, "Well, I'll just create the video, we'll just do it ourselves, and then we'll edit it," but what AI put out there was the foundation of it was good. So anyway, that's the kind of stuff that I think is interesting. But I still think, ideation is great too when you start because you get blocks. I mean, we have so many clients in so many different industries, you get blocks and you have to use AI sometimes for ideation. So
Oh, I love doing that. I love going into my office and shutting the door and putting on my headphones and having the actual conversation with AI so I can get some ideas going. Do that for about 5 to 10 minutes, get some fresh ideas in my head, and then I go through my process of how I, decipher out what's a good idea and what's not a good idea
right,
and
right.
go from there. But it definitely has made it faster to come up with ideas that way because I don't have to start from scratch. I can just have some canned ideas come my way and then I have to individualize them and make them my own. But that's
Yep.
also part of the fun process too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're out of time, so we've got to
Okay.
sort of end this. You got any ending comments on marketing, on growth, on your business?
Oh gosh. If anything I've said is of interest today, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. And even if it's just to grab a virtual cup of coffee, I'd love to hear from you.
And where can people reach you? On LinkedIn?
LinkedIn is a great format. And I do believe that my contact is that true? My contact information will be attached to this?
Yep, in the
Okay,
description.
great.
Yeah, we'll
Okay.
have your LinkedIn in there, any whatever you supplied, any social media that you supplied, if you want, if your website is in there,
Mhm.
yeah, we'll put all that in the description, so people will know how
Okay,
to get in touch with you.
great. That sounds great. But by far the best and quickest way to get a hold of me is LinkedIn. Just search for my name and then message me right there.
That's fantastic. Thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time. I know that, we're on a different time zone, but, I appreciate it, and, you know, if there's anything we can do to help you, give us a call, give us a shout. Uh, don't think twice about reaching out.
Wonderful. Thank
Uh,
you, Phil.
thank you.